The White House responding today to the Minnesota school shooting. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt leans into the power of prayer while highlighting the administration's push on crime and American labor. NTD's Mary Otsu has more from the White House.
President Trump and the First Lady encouraged the entire nation to join all of us in praying for the victims and their families as they face unimaginable grief and loss.
The White House today responding to the Minnesota school shooting that took the lives of an 8- and a 10-year-old.
In a time of mourning like this, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith.
As Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is defending the power of prayer, the FBI is currently investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Press Secretary Leavitt tells NTD's Iris Tao that the administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities.
Iris.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions on the shooting. What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking. As a parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring.
Meanwhile, Press Secretary Leavitt is touting the lower D.C. crime numbers. As the White House is doubling down on its stance on crime, it is now bringing its attention to Chicago, criticizing local officials for ignoring the problem.
To Americans in Democrat-run cities nationwide, decline is a choice. You don't have to live in constant fear of being robbed, raped, or murdered. Your leaders are lying to you, and they have been failing you for decades.
Leavitt says that for 13 years, Chicago has had the most murders of any U.S. city. And as Labor Day approaches on Monday, the White House is touting that nearly $10 trillion in investments is being brought into America.
For decades, the hardworking men and women of our country who built the greatest nation in world history were sold out by selfish, greedy, short-sighted globalists who put our country on a path to economic and cultural ruin. This national disgrace is over, and the dignity of American labor is being defended.
The White House says that since President Trump took office, the economy has added nearly 500,000 jobs to the workforce, and that the average taxpayer can expect a nearly $4,000 tax cut. Reporting from the White House, Mary Otsu, NTD News.
Police are releasing new details and new evidence about the suspect accused of opening fire outside a Catholic school in Minneapolis Wednesday, killing 2 children and injuring 18 others. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest on the tragedy.
A candlelight vigil was held in Lyndhurst Park in Minneapolis Wednesday to honor the victims of the Catholic school shooting. Officials provided an update on the tragedy on Thursday.
At this time, we have identified a total of 20 victims that had injuries resulting from gunfire, including the 8- and 10-year-old who were killed yesterday. 15 of the injured are children between the ages of 6 and 15.
He says the children's injuries range from minor grazes to serious life-threatening wounds. 3 of the victims are adults in their 80s. Police say they recovered, quote, 3 shotgun shells along with approximately 116 rifle rounds at the scene. The FBI has identified the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman. Officials confirmed he was born Robert Westman and legally changed his name in 2020 after identifying as female. Online posts by the suspect showed firearms, ammunition, and notes describing depression and plans for an attack.
The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings that describe the shooter's plan, writings that describe the shooter's mental state, and more than anything, writings that describe the shooter's hate. Pure, indiscriminate hate.
Officials say the church's locked doors during Mass saved lives.
Annunciation Church had a practice that once Mass began, they locked the doors of the church. This incident occurred shortly after the Mass was beginning. So there's no question that the fact that the doors were locked likely saved additional lives.
O'Hara says that the shooter intended to barricade and did barricade the doors on the same side of the church where the shooting occurred. Officials say the gunman had attended the church and school in the past, and that his mother once worked at the parish. They confirmed the shooter purchased the guns legally and had no criminal history except for a traffic ticket. On Thursday, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey urged state and federal bans on so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The White House says very soon it will announce a new CDC director to replace Dr. Susan Monarez. This while Monarez is fighting her termination. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
The president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that CDC Director Susan Monarez was fired by the president because she didn't align with the president's mission to make America healthy again.
The secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
The Department of Health and Human Services announced the removal of Dr. Monarez on Wednesday. However, Monarez is pushing back. One of her attorneys says, quote, Dr. Monarez has neither resigned nor yet been fired. In a statement Wednesday evening, Monarez's attorneys, Mark Lade and Abby Lowell, wrote when CDC Director Susan Monarez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. Dr. Monarez has neither resigned nor received notification from the White House that she has been fired, and as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign. Also, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been in Texas visiting with Governor Greg Abbott to help further the state's MAHA agenda. Kennedy and Abbott discussed initiatives for rural health care in Texas.
190 counties are categorized as rural in this state. In those more than 190 counties, we have more than 6 million Texans who have health care needs just like everybody else in the entire state of Texas.
Rural America is in crisis, and the rural hospitals are absolutely critical for them surviving these crises. These institutions are not just medical providers. They're, in most cases, they're the single largest employer in those areas.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
As President Trump mulls over whether to deploy the National Guard to Chicago, Homeland Security has asked a nearby military base for limited support. Meanwhile, a judge in Florida has approved the closure of Alligator Alcatraz. NTD's Arlene Richards has the latest.
This whole story on crime is incredible that the Democrats wouldn't be with us.
As President Trump touts his success in deploying the National Guard to address crime in D.C., he's been hinting at sending more troops to Chicago. But Illinois Governor Pritzker has said no thank you. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has asked a naval base 35 miles outside of Chicago for help, which may be a clue of future law enforcement presence to come. Matt Mogul, a spokesperson for Naval Base Great Lakes, told CNN that the department asked for limited support in the form of facilities, infrastructure, and other logistical needs to support DHS operations. In the weeks after the administration deployed National Guard troops to D.C. streets, he's been calling for sending troops to other crime-ridden cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and New York. In light of the Illinois governor's objections, President Trump has been hedging on sending troops in without a request from Pritzker. Border czar Tom Homan says there's still a crime problem.
Chicago still has a crime problem. So President Trump, again, made a promise to American people, we'll make this country safe again. So Chicago has a crime problem. That's why President Trump's thinking about it.
Last week, some Chicago residents said they would welcome reinforcements.
It's no law and order.
I mean, if you got the National Guard right there, are you going to rob somebody right there in front of the National Guards? No, you're not.
Details about the administration's plans for Chicago are still unclear. Over in Florida, the administration is battling losses over the operation of Alligator Alcatraz. The immigration detention facility in the Florida Everglades is closing down after a federal judge late Wednesday denied requests to pause her order to wind down operations at the facility. Detainees had reported unsanitary conditions and being cut off from the legal system. The White House responded to the judge's decision on Thursday.
We know that what this administration is doing with respect to all policy, but also immigration policy, is above the books, and we're abiding by our nation's immigration laws. And we think it's despicable that an activist judge has inserted themselves in this migrant detention facility to the point where DHS is now having to relocate these illegal immigrants.
The judge has given them until late October to completely shut down the facility. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Russia strikes Kiev in the deadliest bombardment since the Trump-Putin-Alaska summit. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more on this story.
Rescue operations continued throughout the day in Kiev after Russian drones and missiles struck 33 locations in all of the 10 districts of the Ukrainian capital. At least 18 civilians, including 4 children, were killed and 44 others were wounded. The strikes hit exclusively civilian infrastructure, with damage reported at the European Union delegation headquarters and the British delegation offices in Kiev.
This attack is one of the examples of Russian country is terrorist country. Destroyed civilians, killed civilians.
The president of the European Commission expressed outrage and highlighted that the peace talks with the Russian government have not deterred Vladimir Putin from his objectives in Ukraine.
Last night's attack struck in close proximity of the diplomatic mission, the representation of our union. 2 missiles hit in a distance of 50 meters of the delegation within 20 seconds. And this is another grim reminder of what is at stake.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stressed that the U.S. and its allies should not be naive about what the Russian government is capable and will do to reach a settlement to the war in Ukraine that is to Vladimir Putin's advantage.
And now we are working on the security guarantees. President Trump is trying to get Zelensky and Putin together at the table. But I think last night is evidence, again, that Russia is capable of a lot, is willing to do whatever they think is necessary to bring the war into a situation of their advantage, but they will not be successful because we will keep supporting Ukraine and we will do everything to end this war under Trump's leadership.
The Ukrainian government unveiled this week a new domestically produced long-range missile dubbed the Flamingo. The missile has a range of 3,000 kilometers and can deliver twice a payload of the powerful Tomahawk missile. The Flamingo missile could be a game changer in war and in peacetime for Ukraine. President Zelensky expects the country to be producing more than 200 of these missiles per month by the end of the year. And since it's domestically produced, it has no Western limitations to its use and can be used to hit Moscow and even beyond, even the Russian fleet in the Barents Sea. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.